Well, hello there, watching the press preview. A first look then at what is on the front pages. Time to see what is making the headlines with Christopher Hope, Chief Political Correspondent of the Daily Telegraph, and Jesscia Elgot, Chief Political Correspondent at The Guardian. Welcome to both of you and with us right through until midnight. So let's see what is on the front pages then, starting with the Eye. It leads with tonight's news that the rules on who must isolate after being pinged are to be changed to keep the economy on track. The Daily Mail says there's increasing pressure from business for the changes. Many top firms have signed a letter from the paper to that end. One MP has called for the army to be brought in to make sure there are no shortages on the supermarkets. That, as you can see, is the main story for the Metro. Front of the Telegraph then, a study has found that sending school children home after they come into contact with a COVID case is unnecessary and that daily testing would be just as effective. The Guardian reporting on rising anger that a 3% pay rise for NHS workers will have to be funded by the service itself. The Daily Mirror returns to the disappearance of toddler Ben Needham in Greece in 1991 with an artist's impression of how he might look today and words from his mother, who still believes he is alive. The Financial Times leading on the results of an inquiry which has found that financier Lex Greensill had privileged access to ministers and to David Cameron. The Sun says footballer Harry Kane is to leave Tottenham Hotspur for Manchester City for £160 million and a wage of £400,000 a week. While the Star is worried about the welfare, of the Education Secretary, who it seems hasn't been around for a while. Some holidays and all that, I guess. Let's talk more then to Christopher and to Jessica. Welcome to both of you. Right, so the news tonight then is that there are exemptions, quite a long list and quite a large number of sectors. Jessica, what will this do you think, and will it calm the demands for change and the bringing forward of that August the 16th date?
Yeah, I mean, there's still Tory MPs in pretty much open revolt over this policy, demanding that the policy that you can avoid isolation if you've been double jabbed be brought forward from August 16th. You know, it's just mounting hundreds of thousands of people having to isolate. Tonight, the government's announced that workers from 16 key services, including things like health, transport, energy, won't have to isolate after being pinged. But there are very, very serious caveats to it. You've got to apply via your workplace. You've got to be a named person who gets a letter saying that this particularly applies to you. And it certainly doesn't apply to all workers within each of those sectors. Only the ones who are doing very critical work, which they can't do from home, will it apply to. So the government's tried to make this very, very narrow and you know, one might say difficult to use.
Because otherwise the case would be, why not just stop it, I guess, Christopher?
Well, yeah, I mean, the politics here is that it's a lockdown without calling it one. It's without one being mandated by the government. So they're using the ping and the sensitivity of the ping, which won't change, and the August the 16th date, far away, when PCR tests will give us a true freedom. They're using this ping and these. I mean, listen to Jess speak. Then it was like hearing something from communist Russia. We're applying sectors, going to apply named people only. I mean, crumbs. We've got a Tory government in power. You wouldn't believe it, would you, given what this virus has done to us? But you know, this is the way the government's going to do it. They don't want to lock down any further. That's the political dividing line. So they're allowing the ping to take all the strain.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lockdown, though, is it? We're not living as if we're under a lockdown. This is just a necessary public... Well, you heard Boris Johnson say this is, you know, about the only thing that's left in our armoury, partly because they got rid of face masks, I guess, Christopher.
Some people feel they're locked down. Certainly, looking at the numbers who are being forced to self-isolate after being pinged, I mean, it must be nearly towards 2 million now, given it was 600,000 in the past week. Yeah, it's not a lockdown in that sense, but it's because the government has reached the end of the road with lockdown. Certainly, as Jess says there, with its own backbenchers. There's more than the 42 required to overturn a vote in Parliament on vaccine passports. That's the next fight coming. In our paper, in this story here in the Telegraph that I've helped write, we've got Lord Lansley, Andrew Lansley, backing Jeremy Hunt, saying bring forward the August the 16th date when a PCR test, if you're double jabbed, will get you back into the workplace. And I think that's where it's going. And the question is, can the government hold the line for long enough to stop that being a big issue, but pressure is growing on that date.
Yeah, and you do wonder if they're actually worried about testing capacity. If cases do indeed rise up to about 100,000, there's got to be pressure on that. But, you know, it's pictures like on the front page of the Metro, isn't it, with those empty shelves, which, to be fair, are not universal. We have to bear that in mind. Appeals for people not to panic buy. Ping in the army, one suggests. You know, how close are we to some sort of crisis point, Jesscia?
Well, supermarket leaders who met with the Environment Secretary, George Eustice, tonight say that we're not at that crisis point at all. And that there are some, you know, these shelves, seeing these shelves, I think, for a lot of us is very emotional and very scary, because it reminds us of the very early days of the pandemic where, you know, you'd walk into the supermarket after work and just have nothing to buy. And that it really did, you know, I think it's quite easy to forget how scary that felt for a lot of people. And I think seeing this again is very evocative of that. Supermarket leaders say that that's not the case. And in fact, sort of supermarket retail workers aren't even going to be covered by this scheme. It's all about food supply workers that should be, you know, getting this stuff to the stores.
Christopher, you wanted to come in then?
Well, I'm trying to look closely on my screen here. That appears to be water shelves. And I don't know how your day's been, Anna, but I've been roasting today. No wonder the water's run out. I mean, I wonder whether that's actually caused by this pingdemic, or it's just basically a hot day and they're low on water. But, I mean, Jess is right. He's making a broad point here. There's also, dare I say it, a Brexit angle, and Jess might enjoy this working for The Guardian. But there is an issue here with a driver shortage, which might take 5 months to clear because of problems with EU workers getting to the country and being able to drive vehicles here. So I think it's a bit of a kind of perfect storm of hot weather forcing water to run out, an issue with EU drivers and drivers in this country, combined with the pandemic and people being pinged. Yeah,
you're suggesting that if that was the ice cream shelves, it would be the same situation, I guess, aren't you?
Well, exactly. I'm always a bit loath to trust. I mean, Metro is a reputable paper, and I'm sure that's not the case. But I just do wonder sometimes whether the pictures are forgetting what's happening in the outside world. It was boiling today, and
Yeah. Oh, you've momentarily frozen. We went to the supermarket today. That's the royal we. It wasn't me, by the way, and it was all fine. So, you know, I think it's where you are, isn't it? And certainly some holiday resorts seem to be worse off. But, you know, don't panic buy. The goods are coming is the answer. But we're going to go to Christopher's paper. But, Jessica, you'll have to do it while we re-establish... Oh, you're back. Hello. You keep freezing. We can hear you. It's a bit like radio, to be honest with you. Which is the story in the Telegraph about schools and what to do about them. Obviously, schools are broken up, the bubble system has gone anyway, but this is a study which has shown that actually testing can stop the need for being sent home for 10 days, Jessica.
Yeah, and on the face of it, obviously, it's quite a heartening study. You know, that's found that if you do test children every day going into school, then you have the same effect. You prevent outbreaks in the same way as you do sending them home. I mean, this year has just been an absolute nightmare for parents who've got children in school and for children themselves. You know, there are so many teenagers leaving school who might have had their last few weeks of school just cut short, leavers assemblies, things that, you know, really mean something and really matter to people. And I think the government's pretty set on those kind of bubble systems. Isolations won't happen from September. I know a lot of school teachers are preparing for that to have to be reintroduced anyway. You know, they're having that basically as their plan A, and plan B is going back to normal, just because, you know, things do seem very uncertain. At the moment, we're supposed to be pressing ahead with exams at the end of next year, even though the children who'll be taking those exams might have had their first year of studying, you know, incredibly disrupted. And so, you know, I think a lot of teachers are quite apprehensive about the year ahead, but this hopefully should be some reasonably positive news.
Yeah, and just a quick thought from you about this, Christopher, is it's your paper, obviously. We know 1 million children were out in one of the last weeks of term, so many who've been their final years of either primary or secondary would not have said goodbye to their fellow students. It's really tough for people, isn't it? So, I mean, who knows what will come, because the cases could still be really high when schools go back in the start of September.
Yes, it's second July that we moved through this. My children went through it last July, and it's really, really sad. They miss out on something. Yes, there's a problem here, and yeah, I think we'll be living with the virus, as we all think that now, don't we? From September. I mean, this is a bit after the event. This research. If only we'd known about this at the start of the summer term, they may have rethought the bubbles and rethought the wisdom of sending children home. When, as this study found out, 98.4% of children who were sent home for 10 days never went on to develop COVID. Why were they sent home? Why are we? I don't know what we're doing really by sending kids home, because they need to be at school. They should be at school, and I think we've gone a bit mad over this really. And it's important that come the next academic year, the next one, we get this right.
Now, Christopher Hope, Chief Political Correspondent of the Daily Telegraph, and Jesscia Elgot, Chief Political Correspondent at The Guardian. Let's go to the Financial Times, shall we? Picture up the top there, Olympic Games officially starts tomorrow. Jessica, are you looking forward to this, or are we all just watching what might happen?
Yes.
Yeah, I find it, I mean, amazingly enough, it feels like it's kind of really crept up on us. There's usually a massive build up to the Olympics, and just because it's always just been so tentative about this going ahead, it feels like, you know, the fact that it's starting feels almost dreamlike. I mean, it is certainly, you know, one of the most kind of precarious games that any of us can ever remember. I mean, you know, in the middle of a global pandemic, how many, 11,000 athletes, more than 200 countries flying into a city which is in a state of emergency, and a country where, you know, there's not a lot of the population are fully vaccinated. I think it's only about 20-25%. And where, you know, that poll after poll says the country doesn't want it, where frontline medics are saying, please don't come, we're having to divert vital resources. It's a terrible shame for the athletes, really, to have to come into an atmosphere like that. But I suspect a lot of them would not want, you know, their Olympic dreams postponed again, and, you know, for many of them that might mean not being able to achieve them at all. So it's a very difficult dilemma for them, and it will be an incredibly unpredictable games.
Yeah, let's go, Christopher. Let's go to your story, if you don't mind, in the Daily Telegraph, which is about pay. The backdrop, obviously, is the NHS pay award. What's happened to the police? What's happened to teachers? What news do you have about MPs?
Well, what's quite interesting, I mean, today was the last day of the House of Commons sitting before September. And so Jess and I, well, we can put our feet up maybe, but not really. IPSA, the Independent Expenses Watchdog, is suggesting that it has more power to move MPs' pay up or down, above and below public sector pay. It's been linked to public sector pay since 2015 to try and remove the politics of MPs voting for a pay rise. But the concern here is IPSA are saying they may want to go above public sector pay. Now, what they say to us is that's very unlikely ever to happen. But the fact they put out this IPSA consultation in a week when you've got police getting 0, you've got NHS nurses getting 3%, which some would say is quite generous compared to private sector pay, but not enough for them, possibly. I think it's further, it just shows how this whole area is toxic, and it could be a problem for the MPs.
Yes, indeed so. Quick 30 seconds, if you don't mind, Jessica, on the picture in the Metro of festival goers returning. Yeah,
and, you know, even though I think people are feeling quite nervous about, you know, apprehensive about the case rates, it's cheering. I find it cheering to see, you know, people so excited, having fun, back in a kind of like, young people I feel have just missed out on so much and have made so many sacrifices. And if this kind of thing can be done safely, it will be a real joy and hopefully, you know, a real lift to everyone there. I've loved going to festivals myself, and I hope that everyone can do it safely and have a really good time.
Oh, indeed so. Jesscia Elgot, Christopher Hope, thank you very much indeed.